this lesson is about making predictions about solubility. When dealing with aqueous solutions, remember, if it's soluble, more than 1 gram can dissolve in 100 mils of water. If you have less than 0.1 gram dissolving in 100 mils of water, it's considered insoluble. And then something in between that will be slightly soluble, so anywhere between 0.1 grams and 1 gram in 100 mils of water. Now, there are different factors that affect solubility. So these factors is what we're going to go over next. So the first thing we need to discuss is ion charge and ion size. So the general rule of thumb is that compounds with higher charges tend to be insoluble. So something like a phosphate ion would be insoluble compared to something like a sulfate ion, because the phosphate ion has a 3 negative charge, whereas the sulfate ion has a 2 negative charge. Compounds with the lower charges tend to be more soluble. So anything like a positive 1. Okay, so that's your group 1 metals. With the size, ion size increases from left to right, and we talked about this in one of the earlier units. And the ions of nonmetals tend to be larger than their neutral atoms. So if you have something like O2 negative, that's going to be larger than O. And that makes sense. It has gained 2 more electrons, therefore being bigger. So they form bigger ions than the metals. Ion size increases from top to bottom as well. Small ions have a closer bond than the larger ions, making them less soluble. So if you have that closer, tighter bond, then you're not going to be as soluble. You're going to be less soluble than the bigger ions. So there are basically some guidelines, okay? It is in your textbook, there is a textbook. We're not going to use that, of course. We are going to use the solubility sheets instead. So basically, you need to look them up. So calcium carbonate, okay, that would be considered insoluble. Magnesium sulfate would be considered soluble, and aluminum phosphate would be insoluble. And that has to do with the charge of the ions. So this is not something that's new. We've been doing it all along. You just didn't realize we were doing it, and we will continue to do so. Have a great night.